But this perspective from the UN does get member of Knesset Lipman does get some kind of support internationally. The UN Security Council met an emergency meeting yesterday, asked by Jordan. This, of course, happens after the 60 Palestinians were killed in Sajuya. The pictures speak for themselves, and thus Israel does have a very limited amount of time in order to continue its operation in the Gaza Strip. That's something that is understood by all sides.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to express words of comfort and solidarity with the families of the soldiers that have been killed, and people are suffering terribly on the Israeli side, and also to the soldiers who are in the hospital. We wish them speedy recovery. The pictures, that's what Hamas obviously wanted. We have a determination to restore quiet to our country, and to know that we walk out of this situation knowing that there are no tunnels coming into our neighborhood, something which no country in the world would tolerate. Having grown up in the United States, I know how the United States would deal with even one rocket attack on one of its cities, and certainly any kind of terrorist tunnels into any of its neighborhoods. Israel has the right to do so. Israel will do so. If there's another path towards ending the situation, then of course Israel is open to all of that, and that would lead to the Security Cabinet to decide.
And we did speak earlier in the earlier part of our show about the dual Israeli-American citizens, and I know you yourself, an American, brought yourself to Israel, of course. The sentiments, of course, in saying I'm going to leave, the United States and fight for another country, which I call my own. It must get even more and more and more confused as your own sons and brothers and so forth are dying for Israel.
Absolutely. I mean, these young men who leave a life of relative luxury in the United States to come here and fight and be brothers in arms for the people of Israel, for the Jewish people. It's Zionism in its truest sense. These are heroes. Our hearts go out to their families, and it's not going to be an easy few days as we deal with that, but hopefully they can serve as role models for all Israelis to recognize what this is all about. This is about fighting for the right for the Jewish people to live freely in their homeland. It's a fight for all the Jewish people, and I have to add, I think it's a fight for mankind and civilization against terror and against evil, and we're committed to continuing on until we restore what's good.
Have you spoken to some of the American families?
I've reached out. Right now there's a process that's going on in terms of decision making, but once things sort of get clear, I absolutely will be in touch and will be there to hopefully be a source of comfort and guidance for them during this hard time.
Is there still a political consensus around the operation? We did see the Security Cabinet where it was a divided Security Cabinet at the start of the operation. It did become unanimous, of course, when they did decide to put in boots on the ground. Now, today, perhaps after the tragic day of yesterday, is there still that unanimous feel?
Politically, there definitely is, and I would even say, on a certain level, the loss of life certainly doesn't put us back. Everyone knew going into this that once we go in on the ground, there unfortunately is going to be a loss of life. On a certain level, there's even more of a commitment now to make sure that it's worthwhile, that we actually continue and actually, whatever finish the job means, but actually accomplish a significant amount, because once you're losing life, you want that to happen. You want to make sure that these lives were lost for a purpose. And I'll go a step further. I saw yesterday at one of the funerals in Hod HaSharon a certain resolve amongst the soldiers that were there, soldiers from Amotz's unit who came to be part of it, that they specifically want to continue on, and they almost made a call to the political leadership, let us continue. And I think that in the army itself, that's certainly the sentiment, where they want to continue on, and no one is looking at the loss of life as sort of a setback.
But as Tal said, there is this diplomatic window, if you will, and the pressure will start to arrive when Ban Ki-moon arrives and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. What will be the amount of pressure that they can exert on the Israeli government versus, of course, what's happening in the Gaza Strip on the ground? I
can say with clarity that any decision that Israel makes will only be based on the end game. Have we accomplished and gotten to a point where the missiles will not be falling into our cities, and that we've dealt with the tunnels, and also lay the groundwork for future work on that front? It doesn't have to be all done now, but as long as there's a basis in whatever agreement is made for future disarmament, for future work on the tunnels, I think that Israel can live with that. But again, all those decisions will be made by a Security Cabinet that I think has shown itself to be very responsible, very much not reacting emotionally, very focused on the goal, and that should give all citizens of Israel a sense of comfort and security as we move forward.
But even though we do know that within the Security Cabinet there is different decisions, Tal, you can help me out here. Of course, the Foreign Minister, Avigdor Liebermans, pulled his own press conference before the ground troop operation, saying we need to recapture the entire Gaza Strip. Meaning, are there these different sentiments that are being hushed now?
Within the room, I have no doubt that there are significant points of disagreement, and that's legitimate, and that's the way it should be in a democracy, people coming from different perspectives. The key is what happens once that decision is made. I did speak out against what I felt was inappropriate at the time, when there were voices outside the room which were expressing discontent with the decisions. I think right now we're in a very good place. I do think we hear unified voices, and like I said before, I think there's a very responsible leadership taking place inside that room. Again, people who are privy to the military leadership, excuse me, and the intelligence, and that's the way it should be.
It unfortunately was discovered by appearance of a terror group, and what we don't know now is what is the exact situation, but this is exactly what we are talking about.
And it also reinforces why we can't end this conflict with the situation as it currently exists. There's no country in the world that can live with a reality like we're hearing about tunnels appearing in neighborhoods. It just can't be, and therefore it just strengthens the resolve on the Israeli side, and we understand that it does involve sacrifices, and that's tragic, but we need to be able to restore a normal way of life here.